So, I have been a Windows PC user forever. I've never owned a Mac. I've worked on many people's Macs, fixed many things, so I know how to operate a Mac and do the things that people usually have problems with, which is doing anything on a Mac that requires you to not just click on the stuff that they give you. Most people literally not gonna know too much. So yeah, but when the M1 processor came out, I was ridiculously impressed with the benchmarks and the things that it could do and the faster processing and more so the battery life and the heat management. So I love fanless laptops. If my laptop could have been fanless, I would be in my glee because I just don't like to hear fans spinning. It just makes me feel like it's a plane. So Windows now is going to try for the third time, I think, to release a ARM processor, ARM, because that's the basis of the Mac processor. ARM is a different instruction set, meaning basically, if Intel and AMD speak like English in a paragraph, ARM could put it in a sentence and do the same thing. However, most programs not programmed to speak English in that way.
Yeah.
So, Microsoft is confident that Windows on ARM could finally beat Apple, and they unveiled their next vision for AI PCs in Seattle, and they said that the new ARM-powered laptops will beat Apple's M3-powered MacBook Air in both CPU performance and AI-accelerated tasks. Now, this is coming on the heels of a bunch of failed promises from Qualcomm, the people who are making the processor, and the processor is called the Snapdragon X Elite, because of course, a Windows machine has to have a processor that has 4 different names in it for you to have to say it. You have to say Core i9 1100 series, or you have to say AMD, what's the word? We just said the word by Ryzen 5 3600X or some kind of thing like that. Yeah. Instead of just Apple just like M1, M2, M3.
Yeah. This one is a 12th gen i7 12,700K.
Yeah, that just sounds so really geeky. The tricky part was Apple, in order to do this processor changeover, they had to have a way to get the old programs to run on the new chip. So it's like if you switch out the engine of a car, the engine of the car could go in, but all of the old gears and all the bushings and all them things have to still be able to connect to that engine and work properly, even though you change out the engine. So Apple figured out how to do that with something called Rosetta 2. So they were able to take all of your normal programs that used to work before and say, yeah, don't worry, they will still work. We'll just translate it in the background for you and you wouldn't even notice what happened. And they did that to perfection, to the point where people were just using their Mac, installing whatever program they wanted to, and whether it was tuned for the new processor or it was tuned for the old processor, it was still working because the translation layer was so good. Microsoft, Windows tried to do this the same time. Actually, they tried to do it before Apple did it. And it failed so bad because the old programs were not able to work on the new processor because the new processor couldn't understand what the old programs were saying because basically they were speaking different CPU languages. I am very, very, very optimistic right now about this new Snapdragon X Elite. Why? Because it's being tested and they have a translation layer that actually works. And I watch a few YouTube videos on it where people they install 64-bit programs that were not optimized for it, and there was no jankiness or there was no error message or any kind of thing coming up. And the good thing is a lot of the companies made ARM versions of their program for the Mac because of the M1. So now all they have to do is be like, oh yeah, we have one already. We could just put it on Windows because we've already tuned it to this processor. It reads so far that I am watching the Surface Pro 10 real hard.
Yeah, but Well, I was gonna say too, right? Where Mac will always have like an advantage over Windows, other than to build your own desktop or whatever. Apple don't just control, the chip, but they control everything in terms of the quality and the build and from the chip to all the hardware. So you'll generally get a better overall and consistent experience across the board in terms of MacBooks. But Windows, it's how much different brands and different different combinations, and all of that. You wouldn't necessarily get the same experience from laptop to laptop or brand to brand, but you just had to fish around a little bit to get the best experience. It might be with the Surface, it might be with Lenovo, but that's where Apple will have an edge in terms of the laptops, but in terms of for ARM, right? What type of use case they're looking at it for?
AI. They literally say that this is a AI computer, Copilot plus PC. That's what they call it. So it basically has AI built into Windows 11.
When they say AI, they mean AI to help the user, not trying to do your own.
To help the user. Yeah. So they have this thing called Snapshot or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you can't remember what you were doing 2 weeks ago and you type in, what was I doing 2 weeks ago? That basically taking every 5 seconds, it's taking a snapshot of what your screen have and keeping it in a library, and you could search that, which is a big privacy issue. But they're touting that as this thing is intelligent. The reason it's intelligent is because we have a new processor that is able to do the intelligence in the background, because we have these AI-powered chips, because Intel and AMD can't do AI very well. AI is best on ARM, because ARM is a lower instruction set that is more tuned to AI commands or some kind of thing like that. So, to your point, yes, Windows, because of all the different manufacturers that have Windows available to them, you kind of get inconsistent experience. But now, because you have so much different manufacturers, you could get a better experience if that manufacturer put the work in now. Because what the manufacturer had to do is they basically have to now put the work in to tune whatever they do to these processors. So one manufacturer, let me say, for example, I think HP has one, Dell has one, Lenovo has two. No, Dell has two, Lenovo one already.
You would hope that Windows would try to be the best one since it's there.
So, the Surface laptop telling you, we're getting you 19 hours of battery life, which is basically on par with a MacBook Air. HP come and say, we're getting you 22 because we tuned ours to use different voltages or some kind of thing like that. Basically, they're throttling it. But they're throttling it to give you battery life. So you'll get a weaker performance, which will take you back down to the level of a regular Intel x86 computer. But your battery life will be real high. And I like that as it stands right now, laptop performance, you ain't really need to have all the stuff that Apple M1, M2, M3, M4 could do. 95% of users will never sniff past 50% of its capacity.
Yeah. For like this laptop, this one I'm using now is an M1 Pro. 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte, whatever.
And what's the most difficult thing you ever do on that required your processor to?
Final Cut Pro.
Rendering video, right?
Yeah, it's breezed through it.
Right, it's breezed through it, exactly.
Yeah.
If you try to do that on a Windows computer, it ain't breezing through it at all. The fans will start to churn, right?
Yeah.
So you are only 5% of people who will go past 50% of what the laptop could do.
Yeah.
But even you blazing through Final Cut Pro to do a TikTok video, which you ain't do in 2 weeks, right? Yeah. I just needed to put that in there. Yeah. Breezing through that. Other than that, what other labor-intensive job you doing that the M3 could do? You know that thing could process DNA sequencing And
yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't scratch the surface with this one at all. You know, I mean, I have this one from work, is same M1 Pro. But this one is only 16 gigs of RAM. So yeah, this one, I just get this one to start crawling sometime.
yeah, and so because Mac is here more point, right? Because Apple is control the hardware and the software, and they set it to however they want to set it. They're setting it at the highest bar possible.
Yeah.
And because they're setting it, well, highest bar possible, meaning there's a MacBook Pro and a MacBook Air, right? But they basically pushing it to the close to the top because they want to have that clout. All the Windows manufacturers now could be like, yeah, we rather give you more battery life and less performance and get it down to the 50% that we know that you're most likely going to use. Or we could give you the max out one and give you a battery life that is, I don't know, probably like 12 hours, 10 hours. Or we could give you multitasking as opposed to giving you processing power or some kind of thing, because they could implement it in different flavors now. Yeah. But the problem with Windows flavors before was that anytime you throttle a Windows PC, you're basically creating a problem. But now with these new processors, you could do some kind of throttling and nobody will know. Because I'm just good at being efficient.